Knull, once the King in Black, the god of the symbiotes. After years of absence, Knull has finally returned to Marvel Comics. And today, we're diving into Knull's first ever solo series to find out what really happened to him after his apparent death at the hands of Eddie Brock in the King in Black event, and why his return may be far more dangerous than anyone realizes. Because at the end of this issue, it becomes clear Knull hasn't just returned. Someone even more dangerous is watching, and the universe may never be the same. So let's dive into the 2026 run of Knull, issue 1. For readers unfamiliar with Knull, this issue actually opens with a concise but effective recap of who and what he is. It's stated that Knull was spawned in the abysmal dark eons past. He has been called by countless names: God of the Symbiotes, God of the Void, Lord of the Abyss, but we know him simply as Knull. Before all the countless atrocities, before the wars and the gods, there was only the Void, all-consuming, all-encompassing, a blanket of eternal darkness, cloaking Knull in a cold and peaceful embrace, a paradisal kingdom of one. That peace ended when the Celestials arrived. With them came burning, torturous light. These bright gods from afar deemed the Void unfinished, barren. Knull, roused from his infinite slumber, found himself trapped in a waking nightmare as the Celestials began constructing what need not be constructed, filling what need not be filled. The living Void was Knull's home, his kingdom, and he refused to surrender it without a fight. We then see towering imagery of the Celestials looming over Knull until that power dynamic violently shifts. One Celestial is beheaded, and we learn Knull was wielding a living sword, forged from the blood and fires of a fallen Celestial. Knull set out across the universe to push back the encroaching light. Over time, the sword, like its creator, became known by many names: the Necrosword, the Godslayer, All Black. And for those who don't know, the All Black Necrosword was originally created by Knull, long before it ever found its way to the likes of Gore the God Butcher, who you might recognize from the MCU's Thor: Love and Thunder. That sword has a long history of its own. However, that deserves a separate breakdown video dedicated to it. Eventually, a golden knight wielding the All Light, a weapon contrary to All Black, fought Knull to a debilitating impasse. As the cosmic foes laid locked in a death-like stasis upon a nameless world, All Black was stolen, destined to carve legends in the hands of dead gods. The All Light, however, was seemingly forgotten. In time, Knull would rise again, reclaiming All Black and ruling over a symbiote horde birthed from his own living abyss. Bound by a hive mind, the symbiotes became a new kingdom of one. They spread fear across time and space, even after they eventually turned against him, drawing Knull to Earth to face its greatest heroes in his endless war against the light. But that was then. This is now. We behold the King in Black, not as a conqueror, but as a prisoner. Knull, once a force beyond comprehension, now sits silently inside a cage, a visual that immediately clashes with everything we know about him. A guard scoffs, mocking Knull and calling him unimpressive. Not much to look at, are you? The big bad King in Black? This location is Daedalus 5, and in response, Knull can do nothing but hiss. What's that? A hiss? The guard sneers. Reptilian ire from the rodent caught in a trap? Bloody hell, that's rich. Save your breath, monster. You're going nowhere. That cage is your new home, at least until Her Highness decides your repulsive form is ripe for eviction. And when that time comes, and it will, you, snake or rat, will be crushed beneath her boots like the nothing you are. But Knull is having none of it. Despite his imprisonment, he snaps back immediately, intent on asserting dominance even from within the cage. Silly fool, Knull replies. Do you truly believe this is the first prison to hold me captive? Compared to Clintar, this is nothing more than a shoddy magician stage prop, like your false bravado, all spectacle, no substance, merely for show. And he promises that when he escapes, not if, he will paint the universe with blood, starting with the guards. The guard isn't intimidated. raising his spear and reminding Knull that he has a weapon of his own. What's particularly interesting here is that the guards are wearing symbiotes, though not fully bonded ones, more like crude symbiote armor. That detail matters, and we'll see why very shortly. The confrontation is interrupted by a commanding voice, warning the guard against standing so close to their special guest while wearing one of his symbiote children. We're then revealed to the architect of Knull's imprisonment, Hela, the goddess of death. Standing beside her is Tyr Odinson, the eldest son of Odin and originally the god of war. Hela dismisses the guard, requesting privacy with their new friend. The guard leaves, and Hela finally turns her full attention to Knull. She calmly greets him, almost politely, asking if he is comfortable. Knull responds the only way he knows how. He snarls that he trusts Hela will squeal like a butchered sow as he rips the porcine heart from her breast. Tyr steps in, warning Hela to be careful, as even she admits he remains dangerous. But Hela corrects him without hesitation, stating that he is dangerous, but only to the guards, but not to their mistress. Knull is foolish enough to extend his hand beyond the bars of his cage, and that mistake is immediately punished. In one effortless motion, Hela grabs Knull's wrist and snaps it, pulverizing the bones in his arm. Knull howls in agony, screaming that he will kill them all. Hela, unfazed, simply replies, "That's ambitious, yet doubtful." She then turns to Tyr and asks, "Tell me, Tyr Odinson, what do you know of our guest?" Tyr answers, "He is a thing of the void, my lady, like cursed oblivion, who laid me low in Asgard's eyes and my own, made me fit only for your service." Here, Tyr is referencing Oblivion, an abstract cosmic entity that predates the multiverse itself, an unimaginable powerful being, mirroring the likes of eternity, infinity, and death. Oblivion is the cosmic embodiment of nothingness and is fundamentally opposed to existence, and it wasn't long ago that Tyr Odinson himself became Oblivion's chosen instrument, so when Tyr draws this comparison, he knows exactly what he's talking about. But Hela corrects him again. Not quite, General. Oblivion is the great end of all things Knull wishes to be. Oblivion is the Deviser, who sits equal to the living tribunal. He is the void. Knull is, as you so correctly stated, only of it, and he exists now only on a technicality. This is where we finally learn how Knull survived his apparent death at the end of the King in Black event. Hela explains that at the dawn of the cosmos, the Celestials chose Knull to serve as the King in Black, a role he held until he so imprudently attacked the champions of Midgard, ultimately forfeiting his reign to the symbiote host of that time, to the human known as Eddie Brock. When Brock incinerated Knull in the sun, his victory seemed final, but Brock's reign as the King in Black was brief, lost through a combination of misadventure and self-sabotage. That loss created an imbalance in the universe, a great void in the machinery of creation, and the universe was forced to correct it. The god of the void is Knull. Hela continues as she says, "Ironic really, when no one rules the darkness, the universe returns it to the greatest nobody of all. So when Eddie Brock took the mantle of the King in Black and then quickly lost it, reality itself self-corrected, resurrecting Knull to assume the role once more. This is how he returned, as Hela puts it, on a technicality." She then turns back to Tyr, explaining that when Knull returned, he was weakened, describing him as a wisp of what he once was, a void, conjured merely to fill another void. Hela states, "Still, if Knull remembered that Asgard existed, he might have known to avoid such snares, but none of Midgard do, not even Knull. So outside his sight, I gathered the threads of fate in my grip and bound him with them, and now his strength returns to me." At that moment, Hela reaches inside Knull's cage. Unaware of what Hela is about to do, Knull pleads, and as she takes a hold of him, he begins screaming through excruciating pain. And as he struggles, Hela, the goddess of death, slowly siphons his power, taking delight in every moment of his suffering. Knull is left completely weakened, staggering to the ground. Hela, having drained a portion of his dark energy, remarks coldly, "Less dark energy than before. It seems you are starting to outlive your usefulness, god of nothingness. But perhaps that will be your final escape. becoming nothing again. With that, Hela turns and leaves, and Knull remains in his cage, angry, frustrated, but silently muttering to himself, reflecting on Hela's words. But that insult becomes inspiration. Knull realizes something. He is nothing. He is the void, the great absence, and suddenly he's gone, disappeared from sight. That same guard from earlier returns, realizing that the cage is now empty, but he assumes it must be some kind of illusion, calling it a vanishing act or a trick. He drives his spear through the cage, expecting to pierce a false image, but it becomes clear almost immediately. Knull has truly escaped. We hear Knull's voice, calm and deadly. Not a trick, but you were correct. The cage was empty, and I am the great emptiness. Then the impossible becomes reality. Though the cage was empty, Knull had been there, and now the room itself is empty too. In an instant, he materializes behind the guard in his full, terrifying form and decapitates him effortlessly. His smile is horrifying. He is savoring every moment as he fulfills his promise. The guard's blood is the first to be spilled. It's clear that Knull has embraced the concept of nothingness. He can move through space simply because it is empty. I can't help but wonder how this terrifying ability might manifest in the future, and what devastating consequences it could bring. Knull absorbs the symbiote form from the corpse, regaining a small amount of strength. As Knull walks away, he says, "Death is the void of life after all, child. Every death is the end of a universe. Granted, a small universe from such an unimportant creature as that, but it will do for now." As he moves down the corridors, another guard spots him, shouting that the prisoner has escaped and demanding that Knull stop immediately. Knull simply vanishes, leaving the guard bewildered. When he reappears, he does something devastating. He reaches into the guard's back and rips out his spine, leaving him collapsed on the floor while draining the symbiote from his body. 3 more guards arrive. Knull demonstrates not just his raw strength, but his malicious intent, tearing these 3 apart in a series of gruesome, brutal panels that feel quintessentially Knull. He remarks, "I should be able to leap farther, my children, become any empty space in the universe." But he quickly acknowledges his limitation. The universe is so full, packed with light, life, and accursed stars, and I am still weak, still tired. These small tricks are all I can muster, for now. Each time he drains a symbiote from one of the guards, his power slowly returns, but he still has a long way to go. Eventually, he finds a spaceship. There's a note of embarrassment as he considers it, recalling that he once traversed the universe atop a majestic dragon of living darkness. Now, he thinks, reduced to pilfering this pitiful machine. He must regain his full strength, and as he departs, he asks himself one question: but how? His escape, dramatic as it may seem, isn't as clean as he hoped. From afar, Hela observes the situation. "Excellent," she says. "Our guest is playing directly into my hands." Tyr Odinson expresses concern about the risk. "With all due respect, this is a dangerous game. Midgard is cut off from all other realms. We were here only by chance when the Rainbow Bridge was destroyed. If we fail, there is no retreat. Is it truly worth gambling so much just to steal a little more power from Knull?" Hela responds sharply, without hesitation. "Why, General, your trepidation disappoints me. Surely you understand. An almost queen in black is no queen at all. No, I must have it all. All of Knull's power, but I cannot take it from him by force, not with the magics I currently possess. He must surrender the last of his dark kingdom of his own free will, and I have placed him on the path to do exactly that. The only move he can make in this game now is the one that will ensure my victory. But if it's certainty you seek, it's certainty I shall provide. Knull's a stubborn old goat. He may need a shepherd." Then, with a dramatic flourish, Hela holds out both hands, summoning a bright, shining light, and suddenly, out of nowhere, the face of Thanos appears. And that wraps up Knull 2026 issue 1. Knull is free, but weakened. Hela is playing a long, ruthless game, and Thanos has entered the board. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want coverage of further issues of this comic book run, let me know in the comments. And if you're still craving more Marvel Comics content, then make sure to check out the rest of my playlists, or check out the rest of my channel where I upload content just like this every single week. But for the meantime, Peace, peace, peace!